Should we try to do this one sans profanity?
Oh,
if there's
I was
going to be
going to
children
say,
watching?
yeah, we should definitely, yeah, let's not.
We're going to try.
We're going to try.
We're going to try.
Yeah, let's not, today, no swearing. Uncle Keith's going to try not to swear, and that's a real challenge for him.
We'll do a swear jar.
You'll be rich at the end of this. All right, yeah, no, we'll keep it PG for this. I was going to mention it, so.
Every time someone says Dan Aykroyd, I remove an article of clothing. Dan Aykroyd, Dan Aykroyd, Dan Aykroyd. All right, set the scene, Keith.
All right, this is exciting because I feel like we both start every episode by saying, this is exciting. You've got to come up with a new catchphrase here, a new thing.
Yeah,
but
this is gonna suck.
Better. This is gonna be terrible. I kid. I think this will be super fun because we are gonna talk about a movie that I'm a very, very big fan of, and it has been chosen by a friend of mine who I think nothing but the best about.
I got a bad feeling about him. I've never met the man.
That's not true. You have met him.
Okay, cut it then. When did I meet him?
You met him at the All-Star game. You met him when you and I went to DC for the All-Star game with the Giants, and he was there for the Red Sox. We were there representing the Giants.
Ah.
And I know that I introduced you guys. I know you guys have met.
I love that guy.
See? Yeah. I loved him to death and have loved him for quite some time. So I'm so glad that he was able to record this video. And let's let him introduce, as the audience pick, as the viewer pick for today's episode, the film we'll be discussing. Tim and family, take it away.
What's up, Bluff Council? I'm Tim.
I'm George. Tucker.
That's Tucker.
I'm Henry.
And this is...
Grogu.
And we want you guys to talk about one of our favorite movies,
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters. Absolutely love it. Look at this. I did not see that. I didn't know this was happening, but you're George. You're welcome.
Grogu's here too.
Yoda's everywhere. I bet George is going nuts right now. But I think Ghostbusters is a universal property. We may be really screwing all of this up, because...
How do you mean?
Clearly a Disney... Yoda is owned by Disney. Ghostbusters...
Yeah, we want sponsorship from both.
Ghostbusters is one of my favorite films, I would say, of all time. It's not on my top 10 if you can go through our past episodes, but I say it is one of the best comedies of all time. I think it's a top 10 comedy of all time. Would you agree or disagree? It's a top 10 comedy.
I want to think about it, but my reaction is to disagree.
Wow. Episode over. I can't, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I think it's a top 10 comedy. Neither here nor there, this film stars an amazing cast of comedic characters. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd. Oh no. Harold Ramis. Annie Potts, Rick Moranis. This is just, it's a great cast and such a fun time. I feel like this was pretty creative for the time. Hit the nail right on the head for the time. And
pretty creative for now.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot. Sorry.
Shoot. Oh. You made me do it.
Okay.
George, we're sorry.
We beeped.
Heintzel boys, I'm sorry. But I think, and I think it holds up to your biggest criticism of comedy films that we've had on past episodes. I think this film holds up today. I think people would watch this film today. 20-year-olds would watch this film today and find humor in it. Do you agree? Disagree?
I do. I agree. And when I say I don't immediately think of it as a top 10 comedy of all time, that's not even meant as an insult. It might be. But I've never personally looked at it as such strictly a comedy. Like, I know it's a comedy film, but it's also, it has horror elements. It has like adventure elements. It never felt like a comedy to me per se. Particularly as a younger person, because so many of the jokes I would say go over the head of a really young person. so that it feels more just kind of like a scary adventure movie. Like that's what I always felt like as a kid.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of the film.
Yeah.
It's something that could work for all ages, hence why we have adults and kids being part of this episode. I think it does work for all ages.
Yeah, it's really remarkable in that way. You bring up just being creative. That is some of the highest praise I can give the movie. Is I love this movie. I've loved it since I was a kid. Like I think anyone within our age range does. But it's just so remarkably original, and it just harkens back to a time when you can just have an original idea that's kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit, that then becomes like a $1 billion franchise that spurns sequels and animated series and toys and merchandise. And like this is just a couple of, I mean, all-time great, but you know, a couple of comedians writing a story. And they have this, and it resonates to the point that we're still getting movies, and you still people dress up as Ghostbusters every year for Halloween. And like, what an amazing idea. The original IP. Oh my gosh, like, can you imagine?
Well, yeah, no more. I mean, we are getting a sequel later this year. Jason Reitman signs on to direct. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be good. This episode, obviously, not about that. We'll probably do an episode about that film later, but
sure we will.
Keeping it in the family, Ivan Reitman directs this film.
Yeah.
Written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis.
Yep.
Man, is this God? There's so much I want to say.
Why do we like Ghostbusters so much?
Cause it's a Halloween movie, and my birthday is in October near Halloween, so it's probably my favorite movie. And also, I love how there's so much ghost in it. I especially love Slimer and Marshmallow Man.
I like Ghostbusters as a kid. These guys, even though it was made way before, there's something about the puppets, there's something about the sci-fi, the New York aspect of it, that these guys saw when they were little, and they just absolutely, they watch it over and over and over again.
George brings up a great point. Production value. This film is 89?
84.
84. Oh, the sequel's 89. I apologize. Because I remember the sequel. I thought the sequel came out in the 90s. Correct. So mid-80s.
Great year, 84.
I mean, 83 was a little bit better. But that's very true. It's actually much, much worse.
Did you kidding me? Okay. Are you kidding me? Oh, get out!
The mid-80s, when I watched this film just yesterday, the technology. Do you think this film, how do you think it holds up? How do you think the technology portion of the film, the graphics, the effects, all that sort of stuff, how do you think that holds up? And do you wish it was done at a later time? Because I know that's an issue with Star Wars, and I know nothing about Star Wars. To bring it a little bit full circle with Baby Yoda, I want to say that's why they did Star Wars the way that they did. They did the last 3 movies first because they wanted to wait for technology to enhance itself to be able to tell those stories better in the 2000s that everybody wound up hating anyway. True?
I don't buy any of that.
You don't buy any of that, but isn't that what...
That's some revisionist history there. It's like, well, actually, I wanted to save these stories for when I knew that computers would be able to do all that. Get out of here with that.
That's not true. I really thought that's what I read.
I mean, maybe some people think it is. You're wrong. I mean, maybe they're right. I don't know. But like, I'm going to just pretend that that's completely wrong.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's George Lucas trying to be like, I'm so smart. So much intention behind what they're doing. They didn't even know Luke and Leia were going to be siblings in the first movie, but neither here nor there. That's why they kiss. I don't think that's the case. I think the technology in Ghostbusters, I respect them for really shooting for the moon. They really go for it. It doesn't always pay off. I mean, I think
it doesn't look good.
Goes without saying. When the evil dog creatures are actually like moving and running across the street and stuff, like that's not good stuff. That doesn't age well.
No.
But I respect the effort. A lot of the stuff is super practical, and that stuff is really impressive. I love when the street rips open as they're getting ready for their final confrontation, and the car starts sinking and all that. That's like super real. Like there's stuff moving there. You know. This is kind of a slight departure, but I was just thinking about the arms ripping up through the chair to grab Sigourney Weaver. I'm always surprised by how genuinely terrifying this movie is. Like, it's really scary. There's parts that are really scary, and I can remember being really scared of this movie when I was young. we watched it all the time because it's like a family favorite. But that's such a cool reflection of just the 80s when this, like, I feel like this movie's certainly not PG now. This is obviously a PG-13 movie.
Columbia Pictures has spared no expense to make this a fine science fiction comedy spectacle.
What a bunch of good sports they are.
And it is PG.
Oh.
I'm telling you, it's PG.
To be like that scary, I remember the librarian scene in the beginning always was just horrifying to me. And obviously when she's getting grabbed by these demon arms and pulled forcibly dragged into the chair, into the kitchen, all that stuff is really frightening and looks really good. I mean, I'd say 80% of the effects in this movie look really good.
There's something about the 80s and early 90s, probably even into the late 90s. There was such a bigger window for audiences where kids would watch this movie and adults would watch this movie, and the movies not being so dumbed down, general audience films not being so dumbed down for children. The biggest line in this film that caught me off guard in that sense, and I feel bad for the children who may be watching, but it really caught me off guard.
I want you inside me.
Do you know what I'm gonna say?
I know what you're gonna say because I felt that same way.
And I was like, oh my lord! And Bill Murray in true Bill Murray fashion. I mean, maybe it was written, maybe it wasn't.
Sounds like you got at least 2 people in there already. Might be a little crowded.
Yeah, it sounds
pretty
like
crowded.
That's pretty crowded. I mean, that is so funny and so adult. Such good comedy. It's so adult comedy, but I remember watching this movie as a child. I remember watching this and probably not even getting what that meant, or
I'm sure
just being like, oh my God, she's possessed. Ugh.
Tim's gonna have to have a conversation with his children after this episode because of what you're saying right now.
I have probably already scarred his children, and for that I'm so sorry, children. Oh God.
No, I agree completely. I can remember being a child and being really, I don't want to say confused, but like, I was really aware of like Sigourney Weaver's overt sexuality. Yeah. Like as in those scenes, like this is really adult. Like I remember like, I don't really know what's going on, but I know that this is really grown up. And as a kid that was grown up, like who was raised under kind of stricter circumstances in terms of what I was allowed to watch, I was not allowed to watch very adult stuff up until I was 12, 13, 14. I was still getting in trouble. But so it's just funny to me that this different time, this different culture, when this movie was completely okay. I was watching this when I was 3 or 4. And it makes me kind of long for that a little bit.
Yeah,
because,
there's an innocence to that time where yeah, agreed.
You mentioned earlier about comedy aging well, just to double back because you reminded me of something, is I think most of the comedy does age really well. I would say the stuff that a younger person might not think is as funny, which doesn't age as well, is like Bill Murray's aggressive nature with Sigourney Weaver, particularly early on. Whether it's Sigourney Weaver or that co-ed or whatever at the beginning that he's shocking the guy, you know, like he's such a sleazebag, and that was a character that you could play for laughs a lot more back then, even just 10 years ago than you can now. So
I just think that's so funny, that first scene. It's such a great introduction to that character, in my humble opinion. I mean, Bill Murray is so funny. I mean, let's just talk about Bill Murray. Can we talk about Bill Murray?
Let's talk about Bill Murray.
His performance here. He plays the condescending, burdened by your stupidity character better than any person in the history of cinema. Like he is so funny. He walks such a fine line because you could easily hate this guy, but he's just so damn charming, and he's so witty and he's so funny that you want to root for him. But I just feel like a lesser actor or a lesser presence on screen would make Peter Venkman unpalatable, unenjoyable if you play this wrong. I think it's because he's a jerk. He's a jerk for like his actions say he's a jerk. But his charm and his presence, you get the sincerity and the kindness underneath that, and that's why they're friends with those guys, and that's why you root for him. I think his performance is amazing in this film. He's so funny in this film.
So is it fair to say he's your favorite character? Because that's a Tim question.
Who's your favorite character, or who do you think the funniest character is in all the Ghostbusters?
I think the gatekeeper.
Rick Moranis?
Yeah, Rick Moranis.
I like him too.
Good point, Tim. Bill Murray has to be my favorite character. He has to be, because I love Bill Murray in general, and in this film, it's one of his defining roles. Peter Venkman, I think, is one of his defining roles. But underrated, and someone who is not appreciated, I don't think nearly as much, is Harold Ramis. On my This Watch now, that I just watched last night, I laughed so much at Harold Ramis' performance, and he doesn't have a lot of screen time almost. Like it's Bill Murray, it's Dan Aykroyd, and then it is Harold Ramis. And I thought Harold Ramis has so many funny, subtle lines.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
He's an unsung hero for me.
Yeah, I think growing up, Egon was probably my favorite character just from a comedy standpoint. I always loved, and I think Harold Ramis is so criminally, like, people that know comedy appreciate him, but I feel like maybe general audiences don't realize how amazing Harold Ramis is and his influence on comedy films for, 4 decades plus. He's so good, so funny. I have to agree with young George, though. I was so impressed when I watched that tape from Tim and family that they picked Rick Moranis. I was like, oh, they're not going to pick Rick Moranis. And then sure enough, Rick Moranis.
They know comedy.
Rick Moranis is a comedy angel sent from heaven, and he's so funny.
I am Vince Clortho, Keymaster of Gozer. Volca Sildro, our Lord of the Cebulia. Are you the gatekeeper?
I think that's a character that I came to appreciate more as time went on, as I got older, and could really enjoy sort of the nuance to his little dorky portrayal.
One of the main questions that I have for Ghostbusters that I want to hear your guys' opinion on is, who is Slimer? Like, he's a ghost. He was somebody. What is his story?
Is he a puppet, a cardboard action figure, or is he an actor?
George is a little more literal with it. He wants to know, actually, what is it? Is it a real ghost? I think the character of Slimer is interesting to me, how he's befriending. I want to know a little bit more of who we think Slimer is.
And I also like in Ghostbusters 2 when he's a bus driver.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, like, he's so funny.
He's one of their friends. He's a friendly ghost.
Let's talk about Slimer.
So my understanding of Slimer, and maybe I'm wrong, which I'm known to be quite often, but my understanding of Slimer is Slimer was an addition to the script in later evolutions of the script, and was supposed to be symbolic or in memory of John Belushi. After he passed away, he was supposed to be sort of a representation of a way of getting him in the film, which I thought is a sweet way to remember your dear friend. That's why he's always, eating food and being a slob and sliming people and kind of being messy. I think that was in good faith for
with
him.
friends like these. It's like, thanks, guys.
When you die, how am I going to honor you? Oh, God, you're not even going to want to see it. You're going to be a clown, like a literal clown. I'm going to make you...
Oh, great. Love clowns.
Yeah, you're going to be a clown and just carry a knife around and just scare children.
I think that's so funny, because I was going to say Belushi as like a joke. Like, because, he's, I thought I was being clever, but if that's actually the real thing, that's really funny.
I believe so.
Most people think John Belushi, most talented Belushi, but to those people I say, have you seen K-9?
They're the two toughest cops in town. One's just a little smarter than the other. James Belushi in K-9.
I hope not.
Slimer, I think, was... A lot of people don't know this, but was actually based on Abraham Lincoln.
Was he?
Yeah. He's a ghost of Abraham Lincoln, and that's why he's so helpful and inspiring. No, Slimer being a good guy is an interesting concept, because I don't think that's necessarily the case in the films.
In the films, I mean, definitely this first one. He's more playful, if anything. My introduction to Slimer being a good guy, I think, came more from the cartoons than the films, because I was the biggest Ghostbuster fan growing up. I had the action
figures. The real
Ghostbusters.
The cartoon was called the real Ghostbusters.
The real Ghostbusters. But I had I had the proton packs. I had the thing you slid out and stepped on it, the trap.
Yeah, trap.
Trap. I had a house. I had like a doll house that I am now realizing should not admit that I had growing up, but it was like the
We're talking about the Ghostbusters, Keith.
No, but it was the fire station.
It's the real Ghostbusters firehouse playset.
Venkman, our firehouse is haunted. No way.
Hey, I do remember that, yeah, because he was like their mascot. He was like their pet.
Yeah, he became
lived with
like
them in the
pet.
house, and yeah.
Yeah.
Good old Lincoln. I think it's funny thinking about it being Belushi, and so it's all a metaphor for him being wild and crazy and just showing up and making people laugh.
Yeah.
But when Slimer slimes Venkman, that's something that actually happened with Belushi and Murray, except it wasn't slime, it was cocaine.
Venkman, what happened? Are you okay?
He cocained me.
That's great.
just covered in cocaine. Just all everywhere.
One last good time for the for the boys.
You know how Belushi would always show up and pour cocaine over everybody.
You get it. Classic Belushi.
Classic Belushi.
I'm a zit. Get it?
Interesting that we bring up Belushi a little bit. I don't know if we've talked about the potential cast. I think there's a lot within Ghostbusters lore. I mean, this movie has ebbed and flowed over time. There's been theories and things floating in the universe just about anything and everything about Ghostbusters. And I think one of the things that intrigues me the most is the original cast. The original cast was supposed to be Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, and Eddie Murphy being the three Ghostbusters. I wasn't even sure if there was supposed to be a fourth Ghostbuster. So that cast and that version of the film has always been super intriguing to me to see what that would have been, because I really would have loved to seen that film take place and what that would have been.
Yeah, you know me, I want Eddie Murphy in every movie ever, and just to imagine Eddie Murphy in this film as it is now is just so much fun, because Ernie Hudson, who's a very talented man that doesn't have a ton to do because he's in there with these kind of comedy heavyweights. So yeah, I would love to. I was interested too in just the story too. The way it evolved over time was like the first way that Aykroyd pictured it was a lot more sort of metaphysical or ethereal, where they're traveling through space and time to battle ghosts and all these different creatures, and they had to ground it for more budgetary reasons and set it in the real world. So I think that's fascinating to think about, this like acid trip of a movie that could have come out in like 1980 or 79, where it's just Belushi, Aykroyd, and Eddie Murphy flying through space, riffing about aliens. That'd be quite the movie.
Yeah, I'd be curious. And then also on that note of a cast that could have been, there was always rumored, I believe there was rumors for Ghostbusters 3 in the mid-90s, that they were writing a part for Chris Farley to come on board, and then his untimely death as well. Interesting. I think that would have provided a very interesting dynamic to that cast as well. Another movie I'd like to see.
Oh, and that we shouldn't let this episode go by without mentioning, was it Peck? And the Peck, the guy who plays Peck, the EPA guy, is so funny. That whole scene is one of the better scenes in the movie, I think, is in the mayor's office, where Bill Murray and Peck are going back and forth. William Atherton, I think, is the actor.
Sure.
Where they're just like talking trash to each other.
Oh, yeah.
And Bill Murray going, I'm going to miss him. Like all those little things.
There are so many quotable lines.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Enough, I get the point.
So we've somehow made it this far without talking about maybe the best thing about the film.
What's that?
Which, Tim, I got to say, I'm disappointed that you didn't bring it up. You should have brought it up, Tim. Is Ray Parker Jr., Ghostbusters, the song, which to me is one of the greatest pieces of art of all time. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. I listen to that song on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be Halloween. I'm listening to it on my way to work. It gets me fired up. I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. And an honest question I would ask is, like, how much success do you think is due directly to that song? Like, would Ghostbusters have been as big of a deal as it was without that song?
Probably not. I think you...
Not as big, right? Like, it might have still been a big deal, but that song really helped transcend
I think so. I think music in general is so powerful for people. I think it would still be as successful of a film, but less successful as a franchise. Maybe I'll draw the line
less successful as like a cultural phenomenon.
The mushroom cloud effect of this film would be slightly as big had it not been for that song.
That song is really brilliant. It's just like, I'm a big fan of songs that it's a hard metaphor to explain to people. It makes sense in my head, but like teeter on the edge of control, where it's like the like those riffs like are just like, this guy's losing his mind. Like this guy is like how's he hanging on to this instrument?
Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters!
I mean, to this day, you like when someone says who you're gonna call, like it's like, and that's like the oh god, it's such in our brains because of that song, not because of the movie. Because they don't say that in the movie. I don't think do they ever say that? Even in their little
no, maybe in the commercial.
No, I don't even think it's in the commercial. Which that commercial is effing hilarious.
Do you experience feelings of dread in your basement or attic?
Have you or any of your family ever seen a spook, specter, or ghost? We're ready to believe you!
I love this film so much. I can't say enough good things about it. It's so much fun, such a good time.
Yeah, love to hear that future generations enjoy it as much as we do. Families still watch it because it's just great. It's seldom is a movie made that is this timeless and I think universally enjoyable. I'm sure not everyone likes it, but just in general, like it's just, there's something for everybody. Yeah. It's just a great, to me it's almost like, I don't want to get too crazy here, but when I think of movies of the 80s, like the best / most important movies of the 80s, I think Ghostbusters is in the top 3 for sure for me. I think Ghostbusters helps define that decade and is memorable and is good and checks all those boxes you would want from like a decade-defining film. Yeah. I think Ghostbusters has to be in the top 3.
Yeah, I want to put Ghostbusters at the top of so many different lists, or at least within the conversation. For a handful of different lists, and that's one of them where I think you can't ignore the presence of this film.
Yeah.
So great. Tim, is there anything you want to say to take us out?
Keith, I just want to say about thanks for including us in this. Keith is one of my favorite just people of all time.
Anything you want to say about Everett?
I don't know Ev as well, but just because of your association with Keith, I like you already, I think.
Well said.
Well put, Tim. Well put. I respect that. I respect that very much.
Tim's lukewarm on Everett.
Yeah. It's fair.